everybody. Had a few thoughts that I wanted to throw at you. I had something I was thinking about yesterday and put kind of a rant on Facebook. I thought I'd make a video about it. Whenever you bowl a handicap tournament or handicap league, the one word that everybody gets caught up on is handicap, and it's something that you can't get through a league meeting without talking about or discussing or quite possibly have an argument about. And when it comes to tournaments, you either just don't go to them or you kind of go to them and put up with it. You have the two camps. You have the one camp who it's just kind of some fun for. It's a chance to get out of the house, talk to some people, see some people once or twice a week, and then for the other side of it, it's the people who take it more seriously, that put a lot of time and effort and money into it, and they have very differing opinions. Now, when you have a handicap league, most of the time you have a pretty wide range of averages. Scratch leagues aren't that popular anymore. Don't have a whole lot of them around. Some places don't have them at all, and so everybody's kind of relegated to bowling a handicap league, and with that comes a pretty wide range of averages. Now, most of the time, the vast majority of the time, sometimes it's different, the vast majority of the time, handicap is going to be 90% of somewhere between 220 and 230 for the majority of leagues and tournaments. And like the typical scratch bowler, I used to have the opinion that, you know what, you should just get better. You know, if everybody should want to get better. Everybody should want to enjoy bowling the same way that I enjoy it. And that means that you just have to keep getting better. And you know, whenever somebody that has a lot of handicap has a good game or a good series, it's all, well, that's luck, and you know, their handicap beat me and whatever else. But I kind of turned the corner. I've got a different opinion about it now. Now, you take a league that's 90% of 220, and say that you have a 220 average bowler and a 200 average bowler, and they both bowl their average. Well, the 200 average bowler is still going to lose because they don't get it 90% of 220, and so that translates to 18 pins of handicap for the 200 average bowler. So the 220 average bowler shoots 220, they get 220. The 200 average bowler shoots 200, they get 218. The scratch bowler, it's still in their favor. It's still, if they bowl their average, so you're not really bowling against someone else. Everyone is bowling against their average, and the lower your average is, the less handicap that you're going to get. Most people think that, you know, okay, so if a 150 average shoots 180 and still gets all their sticks of handicap, well, that's just a bunch of crap, and they have a bunch of, it's easier for a lower average to shoot a higher game than it is for a higher average to shoot a higher game. And they don't really think about the fact that it is actually, this is what I thought about yesterday, is actually in the scratch bowler's interest to get better. Because if you have that set at 90% of 220, that means if you have a 150, 170, 190, 200 average bowler, they are capped at their average plus 90% of the difference between their average and 220. Anyone that averages over 220 is getting a bunch of bonus pins. Yes, they're earning them, but they're getting a bunch of bonus pins. So say if you had 90% of 220 and you have a 230 average bowler instead of the 220 average bowler bowling against a 200 average bowler. 230 shoots his average, 200 shoots his average. All of a sudden it's 230 to 218. The 230 average bowler kind of cruises, and you think, well, it's hard to average 230. You know, it's a lot, and once again, it's a lot easier for the lower average bowler to bowl a higher game. Well, if it was, then why would they have a lower average? I mean, if it's so easy for a 170 average bowler to shoot 220 and then add their handicap on for 260 something, why are they averaging 170? If it's so hard to average 230, then why are you averaging 230? There's some things that don't make a whole lot of sense to me, and so once I started thinking about it, the scratch bowler actually has the advantage, and you have to remember that a very small percentage are scratch bowlers and a very small percentage are actual sandbaggers. Some people think, well, these guys are sandbagging, and so every time we bowl them or whatever else, well, that's when you need to have some different rules. I think that there need to be some different rules. There need to be some enforcing of these rules when it comes to handicap situations. Number one, you can't have somebody with handicap shooting like 320 or 940 or something. You should cap. The handicap should have a limit, and you should cap high games or high series at 300 and 900, something that a scratch bowler can actually obtain. Because you can't have somebody with their handicap shooting 320. A scratch bowler can't shoot 320, so to make it fair, you need to cap the high game at 300 for both, or the high handicap game at 300, the high handicap game at 900. That's only fair. That way, at least, as dumb as it may sound, at least the scratch bowler has a chance of shooting 900. But you don't see a whole lot of 900 series out of handicap bowlers either. I just like to point that out. And they actually have to bowl. A handicap bowler actually has to bowl further over their average because they're only getting 900, or they're only getting 90% of the difference between their average. So, handicap bowler actually has to bowl better than a scratch bowler does to get a similar score. You can't just have if a 170 average bowler gets a 280 with handicap, they have to bowl further or more pins over their average than a 230 average bowler has to get to 280 once you actually do the math. So the scratch bowler still mathematically has the advantage across the board, and it is in their interest to get better. It's also in the interest of the handicap bowler to get better if they really want to compete with the big guns. Now, most of the time the handicap bowlers say, well, we need more handicap to compete with these guys. I don't necessarily disagree with that. Because again, if you have 90% of 220 league and you have 230 average bowlers, well, yeah, just shooting their average, the scratch bowler is going to win pretty comfortably every single time. And they just like to sit there. Well, if you want to do, why don't you just get better? Why don't you just get better? But as soon as they do get better, then all of a sudden they're sandbaggers. So if you have a 170 average that actually starts putting in the work and gets significantly better, I mean, just an extra couple spares a game or a double a game, and they're up to 190 instead of 170. And then all of a sudden they're shooting 190 every game plus their extra handicap, and then all of a sudden you're calling them a sandbagger. That's the stuff that I really don't like. It's 90% of whatever number I feel still gives the scratch bowler incentive to get better, and also gives the handicap bowler incentive to get better too. I actually believe that handicap should be based on the highest league average. So if you have somebody averaging 237 or something, the handicap should fluctuate week to week based on their average. Now, I know that's a little hard to do. But you should do something to where handicap, basically, you're not bowling someone else. The scratch bowler is not bowling the handicap bowler. You're bowling, everybody's only bowling their own average. And so the other thing is I don't understand why, okay, say that a scratch bowler who averages 230 shoots 820. That's 130 pins over their average. Say you have a 170 average bowler that shoots 130 over their average for a 640 series. The scratch bowler is still going to end up winning 802 to, I think, 80 or 820 to 802, I think is what I'd figured it up based on the difference in the averages and only getting 90% of that. But why does the scratch bowler get congratulated and say, hey, great series, great bowling? But the 170 average guy, well, that's a bunch of crap, and you just bowled out of your ass, or you got lucky or something. Now you get all this handicap on top of that, and it's just a bunch of crap. Nobody ever congratulates someone for bowling better, because you're just not going to shoot 130. You're just not going to have a 170 average bowler shooting 640 without doing something right. You can't 130 pin. I know that that's just the number that I picked out of the air for instance, but you will see 230 average bowlers shooting 820 occasionally. You will see 170 average bowlers shooting 640 occasionally, but I do not like the idea that for the scratch bowler it's skill, and for the handicap bowler, well, it's just a bunch of crap and it's just a bunch of luck. You can't bowl that much higher over your average and have it all be luck. But that's kind of what I think in a nutshell. I could rant, again, if you watch my other videos, the beer frame episodes, I could rant about this for a while. But I just wanted to put a little blurb on Facebook, Facebook. I put a rant on Facebook yesterday. Now I'm putting a little blurb on YouTube. It's just something to think about, just something for a little bit of discussion. Anyway, thanks guys for watching. We'll see you soon.